The Indian River Lagoon stretches nearly half the length of Florida's east coast. It's home to more than 4,000 species of plants and animals, and it generates about $3.7 billion a year from recreation, fishing, and other activities. But decades of pollution and neglect have brought the once pristine lagoon to a perilous state. Recent mass die-offs of fish are just the latest indication of its decline. Join us as two Central Floridians discuss how the lagoon came to this state and what needs to be done to restore it. Next on Metro Center Outlook. Hello, I'm Diane Trees. Our first guest is Dr. Robert Weaver. He's an associate professor of ocean engineering at the Florida Institute of Technology and director of the Indian River Lagoon Research Institute. Dr. Weaver, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Diane. It's a pleasure to be here.
How did the Research Institute come about, and what's your mission?
Well, the Research Institute first came about in fall of 2013. It was, I came down and joined the faculty at FIT in late 2011, right after the first major algal bloom that started this whole system of decline in the lagoon. In 2012, we had the large brown tide, where we saw a lot of the seagrass die off, and then the manatee die off, dolphin mortality event. It was at that time that the researchers and faculty at Florida Institute of Technology came together to form the Research Institute. What the Institute is, it's a collaboration of faculty members and researchers across the campus from the different colleges. Brings together the engineers, the scientists, the chemical oceanographers, physical oceanographers, biological oceanographers, marine biologists, engineers. Brings them all together to really address the problems of the decline in the lagoon.
Let's talk right about what's happened recently. 65,000 pounds of den fish were removed from the lagoon. Can you describe what's happening here with the fish in the water?
What we saw is when the wet El Nino season really started back towards the end of December and into January, we saw a lot of heavy rainfall in our region, and that rainfall drove a lot of surface water runoff into the northern portion of the lagoon. In the southern portion of the lagoon, all of that surface water flowed down the Kissimmee River and into Lake Okeechobee, pushing those levels up. So at the same time, the gates to the canals that drain Lake Okeechobee into the St. Lucie were opened up. But up in the northern end of the lagoon, we had this large influx of nutrients from that surface water runoff. And that spawned an algal bloom. And this is one of the largest, densest algal blooms that the lagoon, that portion of the lagoon, had seen in many, many years. As the algae starts to die off, the bacteria start to consume those algal cells. And as the scientists tell me, part of that process involves the use of oxygen. And so those oxygen levels stayed low in the lagoon for a period of about 2 to 3 days. Due to the size of the geographic extent of this algal bloom and the length, that duration of these low oxygen levels, the fish had nowhere to go. They just suffocated. You know, there's a lack of oxygen for the fish in the system, and they suffocated.
Now, you were talking about nutrients. You are referring to phosphate and nitrate nutrients that were part of the stormwater runoff?
That is correct. What we really see, the real culprits to the decline in water quality in the lagoon are this excess of nitrogen and phosphate nutrients, as well as the fine particulate sediment that is termed the muck. And the muck itself can be resuspended very easily in the shallow lagoon, and thus affecting how far the light can penetrate through the water.
So let's talk about, we're mentioning some causative factors. What are the major causative factors? I know that the algal bloom is a result, but what are the causative factors here?
When we have more people move in and more communities being built, people wanting their nice green lawns, people using more fertilizer, sod being brought in, and the fine sediment being run off as the land's being cleared to then be sodded. But also we've paved over a lot of the natural lands, and so we have this this larger region where we don't have the infiltration that we normally would have, and it just runs off. And we've canaled and we've channeled the land, so when we do have water running off of these paved surfaces, they're being just channeled right into the lagoon. One thing that we could do is increase the amount of stormwater retention that we have to help alleviate some of that, and some of that work is underway.
Now, you talked about the causative factors here, the nutrients involved. What about the ripple effect? When these fish die, the ecosystem changes. What's dependent on this? What happens with the seagrasses, other sea animals, dolphins, manatees?
Right. When the fish die, of course, if we don't get them out, then you have this large nutrient source just waiting to decompose and release nutrients back into the water. So there was a large effort to remove a lot of the dead fish from the lagoon and from the banks of the lagoon. But you're also removing a food source for the dolphins, and then in tandem, what caused the fish kill was this large algal bloom that lasted for months, shading the light from the seagrasses. And so when we lose the seagrass beds, we lose the nursery habitat for the fish, we lose a food source for the manatee, but there's all kinds of other organisms that live in the seagrasses and call the seagrass home, seahorse, little snails, and all kinds of critters.
Now, with this ecosystem, the broadness of what you're looking at, the actions that you're taking, and we'll get to those in a moment, you are also, it's my understanding, trying to relay some of this knowledge to other government officials or the general population. Is that correct? Are you having a conference or?
That is correct. Last year we had our first technical conference on coastal water quality. We called it TechCon 2015 at Florida Institute of Technology. We're holding the second technical conference on coastal water quality. From Science to Solutions is our tagline, and that'll be held September 30th and October 1st this year. And really the purpose of that is to highlight the solutions that folks are that folks are testing, that were being proposed, and how successful those are. We're trying to bring in folks from other estuary systems, because the problem that we have in the Indian River Lagoon is not so much unique. The Tampa Bay estuary has similar problems, the Chesapeake Bay, Hudson Bay, and in fact you can go worldwide. And everywhere where we have this increase in population, in the coastal community, we see these coastal water quality threats.
Briefly, give me some ideas of what options are available and what's taking place.
So we're really addressing this in kind of a multi-pronged approach. The first approach, which has been in place for a while now, is we want to reduce what's coming into the lagoon. And so we have, the state has established these total maximum daily loads and basin management action plans you hear folks in the municipalities talk about quite often. And the goal of that is to reduce what's coming into the lagoon, reduce that surface water runoff. But we've been putting so much into the lagoon for so many years that we really need to remove what's there already. We need to remediate what's in the lagoon itself. And so there's been a large push over the past few years to get the muck out by instituting this environmental muck dredging program. And so that's a very important component, because the muck itself is fluxing nutrients up from the seabed into the lagoon at rates as high as what's coming in from surface water. And so we have to address that legacy load that's in the lagoon now. So we want to reduce what's coming in, we want to remove what's there already, but then we have to bring back the seagrasses, the marsh grasses, the mangroves, and even the filter feeders like the clams and oysters, but there's also tunicates and sponges and so many animals and plants out there that live in the lagoon that can have a positive effect and help to act as a buffer. We're not sure whether or not that they're going to be successful. We're not sure that these animals are going to survive.
It's a long-term kind of plan.
It's a long-term plan. And so in addition to that, we're now looking at introducing flushing, trying to reduce the residence time in the lagoon. And so we have, through the Institute, we've proposed a project to bring ocean water into the northern Banana River. And by doing that, we would generate flow from the Banana River south down to Sebastian Inlet, and then a bit further south down to Fort Pierce Inlet. And that would take the flushing time for the Banana River from over 200 days, from over a year, down to about 40 days. If we were to put in a permanent structure that would just allow the high tide, that flood tide, to pulse into the Banana River. And so I think if we take this multi-pronged approach, where we can have a managed gated system to bring ocean water in when we need it. We restore the plants and animals that historically are the filtration system for these natural systems. We reduce what we're putting in, which is, that's no small task. But then also pull out what we've been putting in over 50 years. I think that we need that multi-pronged approach.
A lot of work to be done. I hope
Yes.
it's successful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
When we return, we'll talk about what some citizens of Brevard County are doing to help restore the lagoon. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Joining us now is Tony Sasso, Executive Director of Keep Brevard Beautiful. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
How did Keep Brevard Beautiful get involved with the massive cleanup of the recent fish kill at the lagoon?
Well, we were contacted by the county. We work with the county, and we were contacted, asked if we could help coordinate the volunteers because it was so massive that it required volunteers and staff and others. So we stepped up and started doing that. And a lot of people actually, it went out publicly over the airwaves and in the newspaper, and folks started contacting us, including our regular volunteers, and we did coordinate that.
Had you been working with any of the restoration or beautification projects with Lagoon, or was this the first instance that you were actively involved with it?
We are very much involved in all over the county, from north to south, from the rivers, the lagoon to the ocean, cleaning up, being involved with all that. So we're out there. Typically, we're not the ones that are planting. We do invasive species eradication, and we do cleanups, trying to get all the trash cleaned up. We go out in the Thousand Islands or in the river, and coastal cleanup and others, and clean up trash. This is really the first time we got so involved in this portion of what was going on with the lagoon.
How challenging was it to get the volunteers and the coordination and all 65,000 pounds of fish? That's a huge undertaking.
Well, and I hope I'm going to apologize, but we calculated out, and we were probably lowballing 100,000 pounds. By the time we got done. And that was, I want to say the third or fourth day we were at 65, and then we started refiguring and recalculating based on the weight of the bags on average, and it was probably close to 100,000 pounds. I have to say, throughout Florida, but I'm going to speak about Brevard County, we have such wonderful volunteers. It's a huge volunteer base that exists all the time, that work with us. But when folks heard about what was going on, we love that lagoon and that river so much, our natural environment. People just wanted to do something. They were frustrated, angry, hurt, and they just stepped up, and basically all we had to do is coordinate them, which was a lot of work, but we did it.
Right, I'm glad to hear that. In fact, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, there have been other fish kills, there have been algal blooms on a routine basis every summer. I was concerned that there might be an attitude of complacency. We've seen this happen before. The lagoon is resilient, it'll bounce back. Do you feel that that's part of the atmosphere?
It's mixed. Just like personally, I get frustrated, I'm like, wow, why haven't we got this fixed yet? Yet, I know that it's a long-term problem, that's going to require long-term solutions, and that they are ongoing, and they've been ongoing. There's more that we can do and should be doing. It's really going to take a cultural change. Yeah. But the governments, the organizations, the NEP and others are really stepping up, and they have been for some time, starting to get these things corrected.
The decision was made not to declare an environmental emergency with this fish kill, and that sparked some controversy. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I understand the desire and the want, and to some degree, when it wasn't done, some folks were angry about that, and I completely understand that. But not to sound like a know-it-all, and I'm definitely not an expert, but knowing what I know with the legislature, how government works, typically when you declare something emergency, it's a one-shot deal, and it's short-term. Mm-hmm. And we've got a crisis. There's no getting around it, but it's a long-term crisis. And it's going to require funding hundreds of thousands of dollars over a long period of time. And we need to get everybody working together on that. And I think by declaring an emergency, personally, I think that the Brevard County Commission did the right thing. Mm-hmm. But at the same time that they did that, they also looked at and talked about and pushed on stepping up some other things as mm-hmm. well. So they acted. It's not like they just sat on their hands. They really did act, and I think they're going to continue to.
Well, it's a hard thing to balance, the short term, the things that need done right away versus the things that are long term that you might not see the visible results for some time.
Exactly. The muck dredging is one right now, and there's the county and others have stepped up and are looking at what we're doing wrong. Part of it is the permitting process is being streamlined. It needs to be. There needs to be ongoing concurrent money coming in, not just in chunks, because every time they do it the way they've been doing it, you go set up all this equipment. It takes time. It takes time to get a permit. It takes time to set it up. You've got to get a place to put the stuff to dry out. All that's really involved, and unless you're doing it on an ongoing, regular basis, you lose a lot of efficiency and time. So if we could get the money, and we know we're getting it over a long period of time, get it all permitted, quickly, all of a sudden we become more efficient, and what might take 8 or 10 years will actually take 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. Now, those aren't exact hard numbers,
but it gives you the idea of what you're trying to say. And I want to touch more on that in a little bit. Let's set the stage, though. What economic impact does the lagoon have on this, not just for Brevard, but what does it mean for the state?
Well, I've read numbers, and I'm going to apologize because I want to say it was $7-something billion.
I was reading $3.7 billion.
Okay,
but that
maybe I got it backed up because I was going to 7.3, but it's 3.7, and I think you're absolutely correct.
And that's probably a low figure anyway.
Yeah, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, and I get numbers mixed up. But I think that's what it is in it. It's fishing. It's bird watching. We have one of the largest birding festivals. It's boating and all those things, kayaking, and I'm a surfer, but we go out in the river and do stand-up paddling, which is a big industry now. Yeah. And that brings in money because people stay in hotels and they dine and all of that, and when you put it together, it's some big dollars.
How does Keep Brevard beautiful? How are you working with citizens to educate them, to know that there are things that are harmful that they might not be aware of, grass clippings coming out with the lawn, leaking septic tanks? Are you working, have an education system going? Well,
we do. That's honestly, Keep Brevard Beautiful, that hasn't been our forte. There are other organizations, Marine Resources Council and the Indian River Lagoon, NEP and others. That's kind of their forte, although because of this crisis, we've stepped up, and part of our mission is sustainability. So what we've done is we started Riverfest, which raises awareness, and we invite all the other environmental nonprofits to come and show people what is going on and what they're doing and what people can do. We've kind of changed our website and started adding things. We have.
I saw that. It's quite extensive.
It is. I'm actually kind of proud of that. We just did that in the last year or two, and it's a real kind of go-to website with lots of information, and we're just starting to work more closely with the Indian River Lagoon Council to get more information, and we're actually stepping up. We're going to start a kind of a quasi We Noticed, only instead of us reaching out to folks, people reaching to us where they'll get a yard sign that shows that they're a Clean Lagoon member. It could be we haven't figured it all out, it could be a silver and gold level, but if they've following fertilizing, native species, they have a lagoon-friendly yard. I always talk about my front yard. I've got an experiment going in my front yard, but it's green and it works. And it doesn't have to be that brown desert xeriscape. It can still be green and lush and be a lagoon-friendly yard. And that's the kind of culture we need to change. You don't need St. Augustine and you don't need all kinds of fertilizer. I mean, you can have a really cool Floridian yard.
In the natural way.
In the natural way, and it works better for the lagoon. And you know what? I have so many birds that come to my yard because I've got mostly native species, and I get songbirds every year. It's just wonderful.
I've heard mixed reports on the septic tank issue. You know, the older ones, not all were built. We had not the technology when some of them were put in. Some of them are just old. Is there anything that can be done? Do you know if there's any restrictions? Is that one of the things you talk to people about, or?
It's something that we as Keep Brevard Beautiful haven't gotten too involved in, but I know it's an issue. And quite honestly, it's going to be one of the tougher issues to deal with. If septic tanks are managed and they're run right, they work fine.
Right.
But the problem is, like you said, there's a lot of old ones. I hate to say it, there's a lot of folks whose septic tanks aren't working properly, and they just don't have the money to fix them.
Right, retrofitting would be very expensive.
Yeah, and so there's got to be some kind of a balance between, because I hear people say, why should I have to go fix somebody else's septic tank? Well, there's got to be a balance there between government, individuals, maybe companies get involved. It could be a public-private partnerships. There could be grants, but we've got to do something to make sure that it gets done. However we do it, with some sympathy that some folks can't do, and there's some that just won't do it.
Right.
But there's some that can't do it. So
Right.
we've got to find that balance.
So we're looking at responsibilities from the citizens on the one hand, that you're trying to bring people together. We also have expectations from the government. As you mentioned, if the dredging could be synchronized a little better with the equipment or the permitting, if I'm understanding correctly, that might expedite things a little bit.
As I understand it, and I always tell everybody up front, I'm not a scientist, not an expert, but I read, I follow this stuff. I've been intimately involved in it.
You live there; it's part of your life.
And yeah, we see it all the time. And every citizen can learn about this and get more involved, and actually become a fix, part of the fix.
Right.
Instead of part of the problem, and it's not that hard to do.
Tony, are you hopeful that the lagoon can be restored to health once again?
Absolutely, I really am. I know it's been discouraging, and sadly, it's going to reoccur. We know that. We know that these bacteria and algae are out there. There's going to be more problems. It's not going to happen overnight. I'm just scared for what's going to happen this summer. Because as it heats up, it gets worse, and we know it's there. But I also am just absolutely sure that we're going to fix it, because I know the people in the community that live on or near that lagoon have the heart to get it done. And we're going to fix it, and I know that. And I know there's people already working on it. Like I said, people way smarter than me that are figuring out the best ways to do it and getting it done. And I think the heart of Brevard is going to make it happen.
Tony, thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. It's
Well,
fabulous.
Thank you. My pleasure.
That's our show for today. Join us next week when we again explore issues important to Central Florida. Thanks for watching. I'm Diane Trees.